Welcome to the Podunk Polymath, a podcast dedicated to the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed-up Southern SJW and skeptic. I'm your host, Chris. Come on in. Episode 69 of the Podunk Polymath podcast. Thanks again for having the tolerance to listen to this show. So I hope y'all had a super great weekend, both, and I know it was super wonderful for me. On the pre-ramble, Trump, the State of the Union's on right now, and I'm not listening because I don't care. Let's be frank about it. It's going to be horrible. Now, State of the Union addresses are generally not very interesting anyway. They're self-masturbatory bullshit sessions, so I don't have any interest in listening to them. I can read the transcript if I need to, but I'm sure I'll hear everything I need to know from everybody on Facebook saying how horrible it is. So it's not something feel like I'm missing anything. I did want to mention something positive, however. I became aware of a Atheist Alliance helping the homeless thing that is here in Nashville, and I had no idea. I saw a gentleman named John Bugner, who is, I guess, the head. I don't know if he's the head, but he's one of the members of the group that is running it. He posted something in Nashville Atheist Group, and I said, well, okay. And I shared it on my page, my personal page, and the podcast page. And he got back to me. He actually messaged the page, and we started talking. And apparently they've been doing this for a while. Of course, I don't know if y'all know Lexi and Brian from Scenic City Skeptic do something similar in Chattanooga. So he told me about it, and I brought some stuff out there to his work Saturday after finding it out like the night before or 2 days before. And then I found out that they do this drive every month. And so I've also become involved in I'm going to be doing their Twitter account, but I'm going to start going out there, I think, and helping them out as far as distributing goods and clothes and such. It's every month. It's on a Sunday afternoon. So that's good for me because I don't have to get up real early. So I'm going to post a link to the group, and there's also a wish list where you can buy stuff through Amazon, and we get it so we can give to the homeless and unhoused, actually, is really the proper term, but that's, I'll fight that battle later. Of course, there's also a Facebook page, and that's where all the events are shown. I think he already has it out for the next 6 months or something. I don't remember. Maybe not 3 months. I don't know. But anyway, so that was pretty fucking cool. I got to actually meet John and his fiance? I don't remember. I'm sorry. A girlfriend. I'm not exactly sure. But anyway, she was pretty cool too. I got to meet him, and they were at a brewery, it was like a brewery, restaurant kind of deal. And it was kind of neat because he actually knew how to do the shit. So he showed me some stuff, and I thought it was pretty interesting. So it was great to meet them. I was glad to be able to help them out, and I hope to be able to help them out more in the future. I'm going to put all these links in the show notes so y'all can look at them, and hopefully you can spread the word about it. And of course, if you're in the general area and you want to make donations like of clothes and such, you can contact the Facebook page, which, like I said, I'll be putting the link up to. Of course, you can also contact me in the page because I know where to get him to, and anybody will come out and meet you in the area if you have stuff to give. So I think this is something that is a concrete way to help people and put forth some effort to actually do something instead of sitting on my ass and talking, because that's what I usually do anyway. Or I sit on Facebook and argue with people all the time, which is always very, very fucking productive and really changes things. Not. So I look forward to helping them, and I hope that we'll be able to build it up and it'll become bigger and better. I also got a review on iTunes, which is a rarity nowadays. I only found it because I looked in the Canadian store, Canadian iTunes, and it happens to be from our good friend Corey Johnston of the Brainstorm podcast and Hardcore Skeptic Examines. Let me see if I can read this. Chris is a great guy and does great interviews. You can tell he's interested in the things his guests have to say and doesn't get all hung up in his own head. He genuinely listens and has awesome insight. So sorry, it was real small print. I took a screenshot and it turned out too well. So I want to thank him for leaving that review. Of course, he's been on the show before and I was on his, and we're pretty decent, decent friends or whatever, even though he lives literally 1,000 miles away. So I also wanted to mention that I got a new patron, $5 level, which is pretty awesome. And it's John Bugner, the guy I just met Saturday, on doing the Atheist Alliance, helping the homeless. So I really appreciate him doing that. I mean, I feel I just kind of, I feel weird about it, but it's okay. I'm always grateful for help, but I really do appreciate he wants to help out local people, and I really appreciate that. And I hope I don't disappoint him with my content, because I can ramble with it. This is the pre-ramble, so I guess that makes sense. So thanks to John for giving, and thanks to Corey for a great review, and thanks to y'all for listening ahead of time. And I will also thank you because you're going to spread the word about the homeless or unhoused, which it really should be. Anyway, on the palaver, I speak to Rick Manuel, somebody I met through Facebook. We talk about his work writing and accepting grants, but also we kind of segue into his thoughts on teachers and how they're screwed over, and also we kind of get in some politics. So kind of a wide-ranging discussion. I think y'all enjoyed it. It was really fun, and he's a pretty funny guy. So stay tuned.
Hey everybody, this is X.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm Felicia. We're the Utah Outcasts.
3 out, unashamed, and active atheists living in Utah.
And we are personally inviting you to let us love your ears each and every week.
As we take the news, current events, and pop culture and give it a little twist.
A love twist, with consent.
And we'll be joined each week by a special guest to tell us what makes them an outcast like us.
Come find us.
The Utah Outcasts.
On podhell.com, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play,
Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
And on UtahOutcast.com.
We finally bought that domain off the kids handing out mixtapes in the mall.
Come be an outcast with us.
Take care of yourselves out there.
Bonne nuit.
And you're welcome.
Hi, I'm Trav Mamone.
And I'm Morgan Stringer.
Do you like drunken rants, major shade throwing, and semi-funny skits?
Do you often find yourself reading the news and thinking, are you shitting me?
Then check out the Biskeptical Podcast.
Every 2 weeks, we discuss politics, religion, and current events from a skeptical point of view.
You can find us on iTunes, Spreaker, and Stitcher.
Check us out, because in the end, we're all a little bi-curious.
Welcome to another edition of Palaver here on the Podunk Polymath Podcast. With me this week is somebody I met on Facebook. He's a pretty cool guy. Rick Manuel, how's it going?
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm Rick Manuel. I'm officially Facebook famous now, I guess. I'm a former grants coordinator for the city of Lafayette. It's a little city in South Louisiana. I also do improv, and I work in community relations. So I'm here to talk a little bit about grants and applying for those through a community organization like our city.
Well, okay, so what is the grant? First of all, what are grants? Let's just ask
I mean, in the simplest terms, grant is money that's bequeathed to you on behalf of an organization. It could be a private organization. You'd be surprised at the private organizations that actually give grants. Like Walmart has community grants upwards of $2,000 that you can apply for, and that's year round. My city does a program called External Agencies Funding. They abbreviate it as EAFP, and that is for both arts and culture groups and social services organizations. And every single grant has stipulations that apply for it. So it's up there for you to use to better your community or create an art project.
Or a what? Say again?
Or create an art project, which I guess should ostensibly better your community, but
Okay, so what kind of grants did you deal with doing?
I handled arts and culture specifically. It was a blast because I am in a bunch of arts and culture organizations. I worked with Black Box Theater here, helped us get everything off the ground and running for a long time with a friend of mine, Elaine Kibido, who she was the board director for that theater. I also work with a arts and culture organization called ART, which is a little on the nose. We do New Works Theater. And then in my free time, I also do a whole lot of improv. So we're applying. It really helps to be on the other side of the table and kind of get a glimpse into how that application process worked.
So what are some of the kind of things you applied for as when you were doing grants?
Oh, generally you have two forms of application. You have a project grant, which is usually for like a one-off. Like this is your grant that you're applying. I'm doing an art show and I need supplies to get this specific art project on the ground. I am going to build a representation of my feelings about this administration by purchasing hundreds of copies of Mein Kampf and building a border wall. I would need to apply for project materials for that. We also have, is that too, I'm sorry, again, probably too on the nose, but.
I'm sorry. I was like, wait, what? Did you say Mein Kampf and building the wall? I'm sorry.
I mean, it may be a little on the nose. Or I could be applying for an operations grant, and that's going to be so that my little black box theater can pay our light bill, can pay for ticketing staff to come in, can pay for new equipment. And so in this area, generally, it'll fall into one of those two categories. Basically, operations keep your lights on, and project is a thing you want to do this year.
Okay, so when you were doing grants, you were doing it for a city, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you would write grants for certain, projects or whatever, right?
Correct. I did for the city itself. I applied for a lot of the fire department and police department's grants. So we were applying for new fire engines here in Louisiana. We have a lot of flooding. And in, I want to say this, oh my God, I'm having a brain moment. 2016 and 2015, we had some serious floods that took out a lot of our city's infrastructure. We have, X amount of rescue vehicles for that kind of situation. And as much as we have flooding, we weren't prepared for the level that we received. So we had to use our fire trucks, our ladder trucks to cut through. It was the only thing that was big enough that had the engines that could just go through, 10 feet of standing water. And that did a number on our engines. We had no loss of life within the city, but we had millions of dollars in property damage. And a lot of that was our own infrastructure. So I applied for grants to replace that equipment, which I have to ask how that went because I left that position right afterward. I'm checking my notes here. We actually were able to get 2 new fire engines. So, hey.
Well, who do you write grants? Who do you ask for? I can't even talk. Who do you ask from for these grants? Who do you write to?
In that case, it was FEMA. So whenever there's a disaster event, you're going to have a grant organization that's going to put out what's called a NOFO, a Notice of Funding Opportunity. And even though, your city was incredibly devastated by this event, you still have to demonstrate why that funding is best spent in your area. It sucks that and that's probably a real formal way to put it. It sucks that we live in a system where we have to essentially beg ourselves as a government agency for money, but with limited resources, we have to figure out the best place to place those resources and how many people will be affected by them. And so in our case, we're applying for this funding for flood relief, but there's areas in the Midwest that flood. There's areas in East Texas that experienced a catastrophic tornado that same year. You've got fires in California, and we're all going for the same pot of money. And the grant panelists have to figure out where is this best spent. And so that's when it gets into a large part of what I did at the city, which was to demonstrate that need. And that's a lot of technical writing. That a lot of people, when they apply, because again, I also received applications and rated them, don't consider how consistent you have to be. When we apply for, I'm probably going off topic, but when you apply for a grant, you feel that your need is the most intense. And everyone that you're going up against feels that same way. So you have to figure out a way to make that clear to your audience who, if you're lucky and you're applying locally, will be familiar with your organization. Or if you're unfortunate, like we are with those FEMA grants, they're not from South Louisiana. You have to contact them and explain the differences between parishes and counties and how no, we go by parishes here, but it's the same thing. It's odd minutia that you would never consider until you start applying.
That's pretty ridiculous that you have to apply for money from FEMA. I mean,
but it is. But with, like I said, there's like this limited pot. They have and it sounds like a ton of money, but they have X million dollars, and we experienced this much in property damage, and California experienced this much, and they have to say, okay, well, how are we going to divvy it up? On our end, when we did our arts and culture funding, we had a limited pot for arts and culture, a limited pot for social services. And our arts and culture panel determined that based on their applications rating, they only wanted to fund arts and culture organizations that had applied with an application that scored about above 70% on their scale. One of our panelists, our panelists were anonymous, said, and I quote, "I'm not funding anything that didn't get above a C," as like we're in the school letter grade. For our social services agencies, the mentality was, we're going to distribute the pot based on score, but we want to give everybody something. So the maximum amount of funding someone could request was $15,000. We had so many applicants that the highest scoring application was only able to get, I want to say off the top of my head, it was $2,300, which is, could be chump change, but for a small arts and culture organization, a small social services organization, that keeps your lights on. That pays your building rental for a month or two. So, the broad scheme for us as a city, okay, we weren't able to get the full funding to replace our entire fleet of fire engines, but we were able to do the repairs we needed to those fire engines, and that was a better use of the money we received.
I mean, so it wasn't a total failure, I guess. I mean, you were able to repair some of those vehicles, and of course, anybody knows that fire trucks are extremely important for
for city infrastructure, and they're expensive. I think 1.2 million was the quote we received per engine.
Good God.
You don't expect it, but there's so much equipment that goes into it. There's so much minutia that you have to consider when ordering a fire engine. And then you have cities have a whole bid process. It doesn't matter what city you're in, what size city you're in. We have all this bureaucratic red tape that goes into making sure that down here be like, you don't want to give it to your cousin Thibodeau? We got all this money. Well, my cousin Thibodeau is going to charge us, how much did y'all get? We have to say, okay, we have this amount of funding available. We're looking for this part. Here's our public bid process. Everyone's going to have an opportunity to apply, and then we have to go with the lowest bidder.
You have to go to the lowest bidder.
That's going to vary from city to city and the terms of the grant, which is a whole thing with people like me. Grants coordinators have to manage. My partner actually does the same work. He still works at the city doing that kind of work, and he has to handle public works projects. And a big stipulation for them is land acquisition. So you want to build a levee. Is that a regional thing? I'm always worried I'm using like regional language. Like we use coulee here for a drainage ditch.
Levee, yeah, levee.
Or levee to build a wall to block the flow of water. We're looking to build a new drainage ditch and a new levee. To get that drainage ditch, we need the land. The land is privately owned. The stipulations of our grant say that we cannot use something like eminent domain. We have to acquire the land by paying the owner the appraised value of the property. The landowner may not want to sell for the appraised value of the property. We have I'm trying to find a polite way to say often hostile population when it comes to selling off their land to the government. And Cajun people may have some plausible reasons to be skeptical of that. but it makes it difficult to get some of these public works projects off the ground efficiently. And so we have to balance all those stipulations that go into it. So we have, last year in November, my city voted to fund new drainage projects. They gave us a good portion of money, was refocused on that, as well as a new tax was raised. And it's about to be flood season again come this fall. And a lot of our citizens are worrying about, well, why isn't this drainage stuff done? And we're like, oh, it's done. We got the money in November. There's the land acquisition, there's the bid process, there's hiring a firm to come in and actually design a levee. Because, you don't think about when you're not a levee, a drainage ditch. When you're draining water, it has to go somewhere. And, the good people of the city of Scott, which are, near us, I think would prefer us not to just drain directly into their city. So we have to interact with other cities and secure waterways. It's a lot of government tedium and a lot of red tape. I'm sure this is like scintillating for your audience.
I think it's important that people realize that what goes behind some of these things. I mean, when it comes to the details behind, like you said, you want to get something built or you want a levee built, something that's important to people, because I mean, if it rains, you don't want to get flooded or whatever, right?
Exactly.
So people need to realize, well, why hasn't it been? Of course, there's always political will involved. I'm sure you would stipulate that as far as getting it done. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you have ex-council member who'd really like you to consider this firm, who's it'll be phrased to you as they're a community resident, they've put a lot of money into the city, but the reality is but they're also a campaign donor for you, and we have to go through bid law to get this through, and that council member may slow the process when it comes time to vote at that city council meeting. This is not I want to say, any Lafayette people listening, this is not any of your current council members. Please don't at me or at any of them. I mean, do, but don't. There's so much that goes into it before we can actually break ground. And it's not something that we want to happen. I know it's not something I want to happen. I have grandparents who live in the area who, in the flooding, they lost their home. I have close friends. We had a coworker in our office who we were at her house 2 weeks later, helping her dig out furniture. This is not just affecting, this is affecting people of our community, and that includes us. So we are always trying to get these projects through. It's just that the reality is that if you want something done right, and you want it done right by the government, sometimes that goes slowly, especially when you want that, your tax money spent in a way that's efficient and doesn't just blow your money. Or, in Louisiana, we are infamous for misappropriation of funds. If you type in Louisiana funding scandal, I think you'll get a lot of hits. So it's caused our process to be slowed down repeatedly because we want to make sure that doesn't happen in the future.
Yeah, I can definitely. I mean, I'm sure most people have heard Louisiana's problems with embezzlement and stuff like that. Yeah,
it's a consistent issue, and it interacts with our population in a lot of debilitating ways. Last year, we had a vote to, and as a government employee, I cannot give my official opinion on blah blah blah. But last year, we had a vote to fund a project for our schools. Now, I'm originally from Texas, East Texas, a little town called Wills Point. If you can't tell from my accent coming through, I do not have a Louisiana accent. We were a poor school. We had very little income, but we had a physical school building. I'm in one of the better performing districts in terms of public schools in South Louisiana, and our students are going to class in Butler buildings. They have no covered walkways, and we are in a subtropical climate, so it rains constantly, which means that these students are just walking to class in open air, occasionally through standing water, and we could not get the funding. The city voted against funding to repair the existing infrastructure for the schools and improve drainage on school campuses and build new walkways because of their lack of confidence in local government. The fear was that the funds were going to be misappropriated, that they were going to be embezzled and put in someone's pockets. So it's frustrating. That's why I know I'm here for grants, but I'm actually kind of happy to get to talk a little bit about this, what our side looks like.
No, this, all this kind of stuff's important. It touches people and everybody, really. I mean, anybody that's ever had to have anything done for a local school or a local infrastructure, anything like that, can understand and need to know the process by which these things get done and why they might not get done.
Yeah.
Like you said, lack of trust in the funding will be distributed, correctly or whatever. But there's all like I said, political will. There's double dealing a lot of times, under the table shit. There's a lot of stuff going on there, I think.
Yeah, and I do have to say I'm really proud of how after a few years, I want to say it was about 10 years ago, our city had a embezzlement scandal, and how we have busted ass to turn that around and really try to restore our faith in our local population. And there are institutions that our city residents are still incredibly supportive of and have a lot of faith in. I can't talk too much about where I'm at now, but our library system is really well loved and well respected in the community. It is an institution where we were able to secure continued funding for, and that is so much a relief, because with our stipulations as city employees, like I have a social media policy, I can't have my place of work on my social media account, I cannot endorse a candidate, I cannot endorse a particular policy, I can only speak in broad terms. It makes it difficult for us to advocate on behalf of the community work that we do, and it's gratifying to know that the citizens are still seeing us despite that. And they voted to renew a millage for the library last year, which is specific funds from a specific tax that are going to go to fund the library.
Well, a library, I think anybody would know that a library is an important thing to have in your city or your town or whatever. I mean, a robust library system is one of the most important things to me. I mean, as far as the knowledge there, I mean, not everybody can afford to, go out and get buy books all the time or whatever. I mean, if you get a library card, you can just go in and read great books. If you have the right funds, you can get more books. And of course, nowadays, like I use Overdrive quite a bit, which is, you can get MP3 books, or ebooks and stuff like that. So, I mean, to me, a library is like one of the most important sources of information for the populace at large. Wouldn't you say that's true?
Oh, absolutely. And, as we move into like a more modern era, libraries are opening up in terms of what we do. Our library has a makerspace with 3D printers and a wood etching machine. And it's so, like very Judy Jetson, we can go in there and just print up. I'm a big nerd in my free time. I play a lot of D&D, and I print up my miniatures at the library.
Holy shit. Okay.
Like I go in the morning, I pop into the makerspace, I drop off my flash drive. I'm like, hey, can I get a couple of these? And they just run them off. We also do a bunch of classes. Our library system, this is a town, this is a city of 150,000 people, a parish of 300,000. That's not big. We have 7 library branches, small satellite branches, and then we have our main branch, and then we have regional branches that are the direction where we're going, where we're building new ones all the time. We're working on a west branch. We opened a south a few years back, and south's about to expand. Like, I'm so proud of what my city is doing with our library system, because we don't just, it's like our internal joke catchphrase. It's not just for books anymore, but it's true. We do so many classes. We do quilting workshops, sewing workshops. There's a workshop on home repairs and electronic repairs. Like, we are always doing new stuff. And I know that a lot of our programming is things we've learned from other cities. So I know it's a very PBS line, but if you are in your area and you haven't looked into the programming at your library, look at some of the boss-ass shit they're probably doing. That's technical phrasing right there, boss-ass shit.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can attest to that. I mean, I don't think I've actually been to a library in quite a while, a physical building, the mortar building. But like I said, I go online and get books all the time, and people don't also realize that you can recommend books. If you use Overdrive, you can recommend the library buy like certain books or whatever. Audio books. I get them ebooks and audiobooks. I've gotten them to do that a couple of times.
And I understand that a lot of your listener base is scattered. They're in smaller towns and throughout the South. I'm correct?
Oh yeah.
And so something y'all may not know about is that a lot of these smaller libraries now are part of co-ops for their ebooks, which is so nice. We have one for all of like the South Atchafalaya Basin, where all these little bitty towns that couldn't afford like a major collection on their own are part of an e-library co-op. And so they are able to expand their catalog. Like we're a part of that. And we're a well-funded large branch. So our entire catalog of digital material is available to people that live 2 hours away, 3 hours away.
Yeah, what do you think drives? I mean, a library system is important, but why do you think your town specifically is so behind the library system?
I think that part of that is that we're a college town originally, and so not originally, but we're a college town. We have the University of Louisiana, so we have a large population of people that come here to go to school, and that means we have a surprisingly large population of millennials, and they're a big investor in library systems. We also have just an amazing group of librarians over the course of literally decades in the system that have just dedicated their lives to building confidence in that for the city. I mean, I grew up in East Texas. My parents are actually from the city I live in now. And as a little kid, when we would come visit Lafayette, I would get to check out the library system that I now work for. And it's always just been top of the line. And so I think it's something that's just built up over generations. It's not an easy solution of like a big relaunch or a specific director, but the work of people over about 70 years.
Well, there you go. It's good to have backing like that. I mean, not everybody's got that, and especially in the South, man. Jesus Christ. I mean, libraries aren't necessarily the most, desired thing. I mean, because you got Jesus, so why do you need a library?
Well, and something I think that is great is that we're doing what a lot of other libraries are doing, which is engage more with our community. So we're not just this ivory tower of knowledge where you can come to get books and information and learn things, but we're a place where we reach out and we build in the community. We have a community reads program that's now entering its 4th year in operation, and we've already gotten entrenched in the school systems. So our community read is being integrated into the curriculum for the age that would be reading our community read. It's always an all ages book. We typically go for a children's or young adult novel. And so the school system is able to work with us. We're able to work with the school system and create programming that's relevant to that. So we're not just there, we're doing our best to give back to our community. I'm super excited because this afternoon, I don't know when this is going to air, but this afternoon, New York Times ran an article about our community reads guest, and they had all these pictures, and they didn't name our library, which made me upset, but they had all these photos from inside of our library of Mr. Kwame Alexander. He wrote The Crossing. I don't know if you're super big into young adult books, but it's been so exciting to get to see that blow up, and people from outside get to see how we do here and how we work together. So
that's got to be exciting, yeah, especially if it's something you've been a part of. I can imagine that would be something you're proud of. I mean, shit. Around, of course, I live in Nashville, and of course, our library is actually really good. Of course, surrounding, and like you said, these co-ops, there is something like that here. It's called READS. I don't know what it's an acronym. I'm not sure what it stands for. But a lot of rural counties use that particular system. the program or whatever the co-op especially if it's like I said, the overdrive collection, it uses that, but also for regular loans or whatever. So
yeah, it's a big step up from the library I had in Wales Point, Texas. We had several copies of the Bible, both the children's and adults Left Behind series, and the ashes of the first 3 Harry Potter books. So it was top notch.
I'm sorry, what? The ashes?
Okay, I'm joking about the ashes part.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, and we could, you know what? We can go off a little. I think our politics are probably about the same, but.
Oh God, yeah.
As far as, and like I was saying before, rural towns, and I know a couple people who live in rural towns, and their libraries aren't terribly well funded because and like you said, Left Behind, Jesus. I mean, people underestimate the importance of libraries in general, but because people out in the country like that, their main source of education or information or anything is fucking church or something.
Yeah.
I mean, now the internet has brought knowledge, but however, we don't see that now. The internets don't make its way out to the rural areas because there's no money in it.
And I think a lot of people in the cities don't understand that. My mom recently left Canton for Austin. I don't know if you know where Canton is, Canton, Texas. It's, again, a million little small towns. But they are a tiny, tiny town that's known for its huge-ass flea market. And she could not get internet in that town except for satellite internet with a 2 gig cap. And so the small community library in that area, that T1 connection was her net to the outside world.
Yeah,
net
you're
to
right.
The outside world's a weird phrasing, but her link to the outside world. I was mixing my metaphors.
That's cool. I mean, I've heard of that. Yeah, that satellite shit's and it's expensive for like hardly any speed. I mean, and of course they get away with it because what choice do you have? There's no infrastructure there's no fiber, there's nothing as far as that goes,
Yeah, and that's another thing where I'm fortunate to live in we're a small town, small city, but we have really also gotten a lot of public trust in our infrastructure in terms of utilities. So we started Lafayette Utility System fiber about, I want to say 6 years back, and it has blown up. It might be longer than that now, but we have a public utility for fiber. It is so nice to not have to pay for Cox internet. We have Cox out here. It is so beautiful. At this time, I usually was actually awake and online, and we're recording it for me, 0 dark 30. This was the only time I could use the internet when we were on Cox in an apartment complex because we had these crazy data throttling whenever I would try and download or stream anything. And now it's like, oh, we have a public utility.
And that is exactly the problem. And I'm getting into politics again, but the whole thing with net neutrality, there was also a ruling about making the internet common carrier, and they actually did pass that, I think. But then I'm sure it'll get revoked or whatever because the Trump administration is in office.
Yeah.
And these public utility, like you said, I mean, there's one, Chattanooga has one of those where their internet is a utility, and it's great. I mean, low cost internet. I mean, that should be the norm everywhere. I mean, if you look in Europe, shit, I mean, it's ridiculous the kind of speeds they get, and the low cost, and it's just. But America, capitalism is king. So as long as you get yours, that's all that matters, I guess.
And it's interesting that we don't invest more in that utility because we've tied so many other programs to it. I can't speak for Tennessee, but again, in Louisiana, we don't just have the internet for things like our library system, but so many of our social services are almost exclusively web-based now. You cannot turn in a physical paper unemployment application to apply for unemployment benefits. It is exclusively online through the Louisiana Workforce Commission's website. SNAP, Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, I used to work for that, colloquially known as food stamps. only online. They have paper applications available, but it will increase the delay on receiving your benefits by a month at minimum while that application is reviewed. So many of our public services that we rely on are tied to that. The city council in this area, that's how you have access to meeting times and minutes. That's how you have access to the state registrar of voters to change your registration. That's how you physically check your registration. That's how you find out your polling locations. So much of our public service is tied to the internet because on the government side, we said, oh, look at all these cost-cutting methods. We don't have to operate an office to do this. We don't have to have manpower to do this. A computer can quickly sort through applications. But the end product is our residents in the city that, our residents in the region that don't have access to internet are hosed. The library, that's our librarians spend a lot of time assisting patrons on the computers doing, rudimentary tasks like filing for their benefits.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I mean, and that's something that's not talked about enough, I don't think. I mean, people are like, well, just go online and just look for this or go online and do whatever. Okay, well, not everybody, especially low-income people, have access to internet. And it's becoming more and more crucial to have internet to get to do basic things like you said. I mean, that's as far as applying for stuff. Hell, most fucking jobs nowadays don't even have paper applications. I mean, they want you to go online and apply for shit.
Right. And interacting with those interfaces, they are clunky. I will say across the board, they're clunky. I find them clunky. And I mean, I don't want to brag about my computer skills, but I am a 29-year-old man that bragged about 3D printing D&D miniatures. So I spend a little time on a computer. I had trouble assisting clients when I was with Snap because our system we were not trained on and was constantly changing and buggy. And so it can be frustrating for someone that is, I don't want to sound ageist, but someone in their 50s or 60s who is not accustomed to having to use a computer for their day-to-day life to accomplish anything.
Yeah, exactly. And like so many other things, I mean, it's tied into poverty and everything else. I mean,
yeah,
it really plays into that. And lack of information is one of the big reasons why poverty just keeps eating upon itself, because people don't have information. People are ignorant and don't know what they are what's available for them to do or for any help or whatever, and they just get stuck in the cycle.
And that's why I'm at where I'm at now. I'm from a family of teachers, and so I'm a big believer in education. I went into school to be a teacher. I found out you can't teach if you hate children. That's strong, but or you shouldn't teach if you hate children. I don't hate children, but I'm not good with wasn't good with the school system. But I am a big believer in making sure that everyone has access to information. Everyone has access to knowledge and about ways to get that. It's why I'm working for a library system now. It's the weirdest path to get here, but it is why I do what I do.
I think most people, that happens to a lot of people, though. I mean, I think it's, well, I'd be a teacher, except the part where I hate kids.
It's but I do teach improv workshops for children. You can find my information and plug that right here. No, it's just working with children in a school environment is a very different animal than teaching theater classes for fun on weekends. I wish that more people were willing to go into that profession, but they don't have a lot of support. And again, this is not my official opinion as a civil employee, but I do have a lot of concerns about this tax plan and how it's going to affect teachers in particular and civil employees who are paying for supplies for their program out of pocket.
I think a good segue into teaching, because that's something that's important and something I think personally is very important, and teachers are getting shit on a regular basis.
Absolutely.
As far as I'm concerned, I mean, and this is not just Republican administration. I mean, I'm talking about under Obama, the same thing was going on. This whole idea of charter schools just being the end all be all, you know.
And in this area, that's what they want. They're pushing in Louisiana. They're pushing very hard to get charter schools. They're eroding a lot of confidence in the public school systems. And honestly, and I'm seeing it from a lot of my friends here on the left too, there's a degree of it that is the politest way to be fucking racist possible. You know, we use a lot of very nice, sanitary ways to say, I don't want my kids to go to a black school, you know? And we've heard it. I don't want to go to, you know, it's a lower performing school. It's a school that has a lot of, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
And it's aggravating because we still have this, de facto segregation in the area where schools are region locked, and it's not intentionally that we only have this population in this school. It just kind of works out that way. And teachers have a hard time deciding. So you're a first-year teacher in this area, and they're going to put you in a, quote, low-performing school where you're working very hard to give your students the education they deserve, but you're doing it for, you know, $6,000 less a year annually, which when you don't make a lot, is a lot, than your counterparts that are in a different district or that have been able to get a job at one of the charter schools they're building or one of the private schools. We have a lot of private Catholic schools in this area, heavily Catholic area. I can't talk anything bad about the Catholics because I grew up a Shiite Catholic, steal Jim Gaffigan's line, and they will find me.
Shiite Catholic, I like that. That's funny. Yeah, it's just. I read a book not too long ago called Reign of Error by Diane Kravitz. She used to be the, I want to say, Assistant Secretary of Education under Bush, I think, the first W, or was it W? I can't remember exactly. Diane Ravitch, excuse me. But it really just brought home to me the kind of, as far as charter schools, how horrible it is as far as taking money away from public education, you know, how they get to pick and choose who they put in there.
Absolutely. And again, the voucher system just feels like a way for privileged families to get out of one, paying for private schools that they would ordinarily pay for, and take resources from students whose family can't afford those resources. And to do this whole weird 2018 white flight bullshit within the school system. Like, I don't want to characterize schools with large minority population as lesser quality schools, but I see less investment in those schools from a lot of cities and a lot of districts.
Oh yeah, they don't care. I mean, because that's not where the money is. You know, if they can't make money off it, they don't care. I mean, and that goes for hell. In Memphis, I don't know if you knew about this, but of course, most big cities, there's like the downtown area, right?
Yeah.
And Memphis is like 70% black, I think, or whatever. And the surrounding counties of Memphis are like, I mean, super hoity-toity white people, right? I mean, Germantown's one of the fucking ridiculously, obscenely rich places I've ever seen in my life. And the surrounding counties were trying to start their own school system apart from Memphis, the Memphis area.
We had the same thing happen with the higher income part of our town is on the south side of Lafayette. It's a new little region called River Ranch. And it's a lot of oil money. I don't know if you know, demographically, oil is a huge part of our economy here. Oil and gas production used to be a larger part, but it's still 10% of our local economy, which that's a chunk, is oil and gas. And so there's all this oil money and all this fossil fuel investment, and it's compacted into this one area. And there was an attempt to, the word secede isn't right, but to redistrict as its own area where River Ranch would have its own representative on the parish city council, and River Ranch would be a part of Lafayette Parish, but would be its own municipal entity. And the response was just, no, you can't use all the services of Lafayette and then pay nothing into the city itself. But then,
That's what they're trying to do everywhere, though. I mean, if you look at, like I say, Memphis, Detroit, a lot of the bigger cities are trying to do the same damn thing. I mean, they've abandoned the downtown area and did the white flight thing, but then they want the money. They want to use the base, their services, without actually having to pay anything into it. So, I mean, or they're doing the re-urbanization, the new urbanization or whatever, like here in Nashville. I mean, it's gentrifying like a motherfucker. Probably one of the biggest gentrifying cities in the nation. And what they'll do is they'll come in and they'll buy up a cheap property because it's been devalued so much over the years. And then they'll make all these ugly ass condos for all these up and coming, hippie.
hipsters.
Hipsters. That's the word I'm looking for. Types. And then, they drive the rents up so high that nobody can afford to stay down there. So, I mean,
it's interesting because it's the businesses that cater to hipsters a lot, not necessarily the hipsters themselves. We have some families that are trying to, and some residents here in Lafayette that are trying to rebuild our downtown area by investing in property and building businesses. And it's a tight rope to help put into an area and help put into, an underfunded and an area like, city's downtown center, but also not gentrify it to hell to the point where the long-term residents can't afford to live there. So it's always a tight rope of, yes, we want new businesses downtown, but maybe they could be local businesses owned by residents from these neighborhoods and not necessarily opening up another chain coffee shop,
Oh my God, don't even get me started. And it's funny, they just don't even, it's almost like they don't care. I don't know. I think a lot of it's the council members have their own fucking agendas. Because, I mean, it seems like they don't even think before, like Nashville, they just willy-nilly. They didn't even put anything into place, just like business. Okay, just do whatever the fuck you want. There's no fucking ordinances, like affordable housing ordinances or any kind of anything to control the gentrification issue, or I don't know, some kind of thing for grandfather clause for local businesses not to have outrageously high taxes or whatever. I don't know.
And dude, I thought I had seen nightmarish city planning because I'm originally from a small town near Dallas, and if you've been to Dallas, Texas, that is some curious city planning. Their road system is like a Gordian knot. And then I just went to Nashville this past August for the eclipse. Got to visit y'all. Got I almost said ordained. Got engaged up there, but getting around that city was rough on us because we don't even have like elevated highways in South Louisiana. You can't build down, you can't build up because everything floods. So we were like, how do I get around this place? This road it goes up into the sky.
Oh
man, what we're gonna do?
Nashville was never meant to be a big city, so it wasn't built to be one, and so it's all willy-nilly. They just put shit anywhere. I mean, it's just ugly. It's ugly and ridiculous. The public transport system is horrific, underserved. I mean, it's not attractive as far as trying to get around, and don't try to park anywhere because it's like fucking ridiculously expensive.
We noticed. I think we paid to park at a Waffle House while we were up there.
What the fuck?
Hand to God. We were just trying to find a place to eat. And we're just like, I don't know where to get. I had some hot chicken. That was good.
Oh, yeah.
That was good. We have a po' boy shop down here that basically stole a hot chicken recipe that makes damn good hot chicken for South Louisiana. But getting around was a trip.
Yeah, it's not pretty. And like I said, they just don't think these things out ahead of time. Mm. And I don't think they particularly care. I mean, a lot of this, we just elected a mayor that says she's progressive or whatever. But I think this is more of a neoliberal mindset. I don't think they're so concerned about social issues as they are. It's this whole idea of like, pump money into stuff, and I don't know. And I hope, bring all these businesses, but then don't take into account the downtrodden or the oppressed population. I think.
Yeah. Now, is this a progressive, or is this like progressive capital P little R with a circle around it on the end?
Yeah, that one. I mean, that's what always kills me. I mean, it's like they try to take the meaning out of the word, like, you're not socialist in any real sense. Well, that's what I consider it, like a social democrat kind of thing, I guess you could say.
I mean, I am I'm in that boat a little bit, but man, I was can't get too into it. But I'm just like, 2016 was a fun year for a lot of very privileged young white men to start telling me what socialism meant. That was a fun year for me. Let's look into the clusterfuck of 2020 instead.
Yeah, it's probably better that way. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what to do anymore, to be honest with you, as far as that goes. I mean, we're so fucked now. I don't even know how you work your way out of it. I'm hoping that 2020. I mean, I've heard that 33 Republicans in the House already have declared they're not running again.
Oh man, I think that not to get too into the weeds on that. Like, I hear about Paul Ryan, and he's apparently ending his career after this. He's distancing himself so that he can run. And if Trump's administration is popular with the GOP still in 2024, 2020, he'll be golden, and he'll be in a situation where, oh yeah, I was a part of that. And if it goes tits up, I got out. I passed a tax bill. He's going to be able to appeal to his base either way. So I hear these Republicans are leaving, but it doesn't. I'm not as hopeful maybe as I should be. Probably because, according to Twitter, I'm supposed to be excited that a Kennedy is running for office.
Really?
Sorry. I'm supposed to be excited about a Kennedy right now. He had I didn't watch the State of the Union, but there's a rebuttal to the State of the Union, and I'm just like, I mean, I'm sure you're a great guy, but I think that a lot of us are skeptical of political dynasties at this point. In our situation.
I'm frankly tired of fucking white dudes.
Dude, and I mean, I am a white dude, but I'm sick of white dudes. Like, I don't even want, like, I mean, Brian Sims, you're all right, but everyone else, like, sorry, straight dudes, not happening.
I mean, we've got so many promising promising women, people of color, women and people of color at the same time. I mean, we just heard about a trans woman winning for the first time. Was that Virginia?
I think so, yeah.
So there's plenty of, it's this whole idea. It's like they don't learn their lesson. You know what I mean? I mean,
yeah.
Democrats don't learn their fucking lesson. Oh, let's put another white person. Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, because that worked so well before.
It's like, hey, Dems, maybe look at your base support and realize that it's mostly not white people, and maybe you should try to find representatives not only who appeal to your base, but understand the issues that affect your base, as opposed to just white people who feel like they can empathize but haven't really been through that situation. I was often frustrated by our candidates in the last election because I felt like there was an academic understanding of racial inequality and racial issues in the U.S., but not necessarily a concrete appreciation for how those issues affect families. Does that read? You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh yeah, I mean that's been the case for. I mean, they talk the talk, but they don't walk the walk. I mean, they don't really go. It's like you read it in a book or something,
Yeah.
you've not actually gone to the trouble of like going to the people themselves and asking them what it's like to be poor or, struggling from check to check or paycheck to paycheck or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, even me, as a queer person, I can get empathy. But at the end of the day, we're like the pod people of minorities. I can still try and butch it up and put on some straight boy drag and go incognito for a while. You know what I mean? Like I am not visibly a minority, and so that privilege I have as a white dude doesn't magically vanish. When I came out of the closet.
Yeah, and I think.
Sorry.
No, yeah. I mean, I think that's just one of the many problems we have here. I mean, people don't understand what the real issues are, and they just keep ignoring them. I mean, black women basically elected that guy in Alabama, the U.S. Senate candidate who barely won over a fucking pedophile, just to be clear.
Yeah, and it would be nice if, as white folks, instead of waiting for black people to save us, we would actually take a step up and put our money where our mouth is and invest in these communities, invest in taking care of the rest of our population instead of just continuing to say, oh, black women saved us, but like, hey, yeah, but maybe we should do that thing that Republican leadership are so keen to say about other communities, that we should turn and talk to our community and say, hey, what the fuck? You know what I mean? We hear a lot of like, why aren't... Sorry about that. My mic went out.
It's cool.
You can get that in. How much post-editing goes into that?
That's fine.
I'm like, oh yeah, I can't because my name's on this and I work for the city. And then I'm like, yeah, so this is what white people need to do. Fix your house.
Yeah, so... yeah, we just need to... it's like when Obama was in office. He was so afraid to say anything about black issues because he wanted to be perceived as a president for everybody or whatever. And I can understand that to an extent, but he really could have used that platform more, I feel, for racial issues. I mean, that's just me, and I'm not him.
Yeah.
So, but I just believe that that's something. Of course, it shouldn't be all on him anyway, though. Democrats should be doing that anyway.
Yeah, I something I really like to see from the Obama administration that didn't get to come through was a lot of criminal justice reform. Despite committing crimes at similar rates across population, black men specifically, are disproportionately punished and incarcerated for the same crimes that their white counterparts commit and are given light or non-existent sentences for. So I was really looking at some of the criminal justice reform coming down the pipeline from the Obama administration, and was disappointed how much of that has not been able to come to pass and how much of that was thrown out the window with Trump administration. We've got what's a polite way to say probable Klansman Jeff Sessions?
Why are we being polite?
So probable Klansman Jeff Sessions in office, and I guess that's libel, but fuck it. And it's a nightmare. How do we get meaningful legislation through with that kind of roadblock?
I want everybody, first of all, to know his full name is Jefferson Beauregard Sessions.
That is a fake lawyer name for a characteristic Southern lawyer. That is not a real person's name.
Yeah, he sounds like a fucking plantation owner from back in the day is what he fucking sounds like.
Like if I were to come on stage, I do a lot of improv. If I were to come on stage and I would assume the posture of a community lawyer from just a simple, like Beauregard would be my middle name. Like I'd probably be Beauregard, but that's the name.
Well, I think people shouldn't forget that he was up for a federal judgeship. And fucking Coretta Scott King wrote a letter against him for the conference, and he didn't get confirmed because of it. Coretta Scott motherfucking King wrote a letter against your ass. You must be pretty bad. That's all I'm going to say.
I mean, yeah. Look at the president. I mean, we all forgot about that other time he ran for president with the Reform Party, and then he dropped because he didn't like being associated too closely with David Duke, which, as a Louisianian, I'm truly sorry that melted fucking Ken doll is still alive.
Sorry.
If you want to at me on Twitter for calling him a melted Ken doll, I'm sure I'll give you my stuff. Put it in the show notes. I hate that fucking man so much because he came back. He came back last year in 2016. I keep forgetting what year it is. He came back in 2016. He ran for office, and he got enough of the vote here to make it to the debates. I think it was senator this time around. Like he didn't go away.
They never do. And that's what people thought after Obama was elected. Oh, well, everything's fine now, No. What do you think was going to have the white lash came? People couldn't stand a black dude being president for 8 years. So they lost their fucking shit.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, wait, I forgot about those people. All the fucking racists we have in this country. Yeah, they're still there, Just because you thought they went away. No, they're still there.
I didn't because I go home for Christmas.
Exactly.
Sorry, Mom. Sorry, God.
It's easy to forget that when you don't live in areas like in the South.
Yeah.
Like we do. We see this shit all the time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not a surprise.
I would love to talk about racism as not just a Southern problem sometimes as well, because man, it's just
that's true.
It's just
that's
more
true.
Polite up north.
Yeah, it's always been that way.
Yeah.
I think because I heard somebody who lived in San Francisco, or I've heard black people who live in San Francisco say they'd almost rather live in the South because at least in the South they tell you that they're fucking racist, but it's like almost sort of a covert racism.
Well, in the same way that you have people in the South who are, liberal-minded, who are progressive, who attempt to be better than our roots sometimes. You have people in the North who are super fucking racist. I mean, Donald Trump's from New York, y'all.
Oh yeah.
And so it's always an interesting dichotomy to me when because I've thought about moving a lot of times because it would be easier. My partner and I can finally get married after 8 years. But sidebar, dude, planning a gay wedding there's clashing tastes. It's getting dark-sided. Sorry, there's a joke in there, but it's not hitting. But yeah, no, it's a lot.
Oh boy, what are you gonna do, man? Things are looking kind of dark right now, so it's kind of hard to be overly optimistic about things.
Yeah. I am hopeful because I do. I do believe that people want to be good. That people do want what they think is best, even when what they think is best turns out to be monstrous. I don't think people are inherently evil because I don't drink alcohol and I need something to delude myself. I do genuinely think that there will be a reckoning come 2024 in that election. I don't see it happening in 2020. We're still too angry from 2016 on the left, We're angry at people who supported Hillary. We're angry at people who supported Bernie. We're angry at people who supported Jill Stein. I think Jill Stein's even angry at herself. I don't know. I don't follow Jill Stein. I only hear from her during election years.
Exactly.
Sorry for that cold Jill Stein take, but
oh fuck that.
It'll come back around when she pops back out of her hole in 2019. And because of that, we're so frustrated that we're in a cycle of reaction. Even I have a lot of friends who were very behind Bernie Sanders during the 2016 election, who felt that the Democratic establishment was mostly reacting to Trump But now I'm sitting in this cycle and I'm watching, Senator Sanders mostly reacting to Trump. I mean, as we're recording this tonight, he had his response to the State of the Union. I would love to see us on the left and sit down and say, look, I know a lot of us don't fucking like each other, but can we sit down and maybe just chill for a minute before they start loading us up?
I don't know. I don't think I don't know. I mean, we're stuck in this two-party system. It's hard to fucking see any way out of it. I mean, you got the centrist Democrats, always the corporate Democrats, as far as I'm concerned, always wanting to run the fucking white people. Then there's kind of the lefties like me who are kind of like, can we please not again?
So can we but not?
Yeah, I'm like, can we move forward? I mean, I don't understand. It's like they pay lip service to people of color, but then when it comes right down to it, they just keep around the same fucking white people over and over again.
And then you've got people like me who are just really, really considering, the implications of human cloning and what our chances of resurrecting John Quincy Adams are.
You took it all the way back.
So I'm not the quintessential John Quincy Adams guy, but I've been enlightened that motherfucker would pass meaningful legislation.
I don't know who you talk to, but okay. He's so obscure to me that I don't even know what the fuck he did.
He proposed a lot of really crazy socialist ideas, like a national highway system and national hospitals.
Wow. That fucking guy. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Fuck that guy.
So
this is America.
Son of a founding father. So I mean, if all you lefties out there in lefty land, if you need some ammo for when you go home for, I guess, what's our next holiday, Easter, just point out that John Quincy Adams, super fucking left. I mean, by the standards of his time.
Yeah, I mean, he probably still didn't care about women voting or black people voting.
Yeah, no, he did.
Probably, you can't have everything. All right, Rick. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go because I know you need to get some of your beauty sleep.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot of sleep. Thank you for letting me ramble on your show. It's been great. I had a great time, and I hope that I don't get fired.
I'm sure nobody listens. Like I said, nobody listens to this shit anyway, so I think you'll be safe. But yeah,
I should say that none of my employers have any idea how to work a podcast, so I think I'm good to go.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of people don't even know I exist, so you don't worry about it.
I mean, my husband doesn't know how to work a podcast, so I can't.
Perhaps you need to educate him so he can listen to the episodes you're on.
I'm waiting for him to peek through the door and give me a glare. But yes, I will. I'm looking forward to hearing it and running my hands through my hair like, oh my God, do I really sound like... No, it's been great. And so thank you so much for having me.
Did you want to plug anything?
I don't know if any of you, if you like the kind of comedy that I throw out. I do a lot of comedy. I am with a group called Silverbacks Improv Theater in Lafayette. We do a lot of improv. You can find me on Twitter really easily. I think I'm, God, what am I on Twitter? I haven't checked my handle, but I post a lot of dumb stuff. My big project right now is I post really wild conspiracy theories in the hopes that President Trump will pick them up. Yeah, I'm Spooky Refreshments on Twitter. And when I say wild conspiracy theories, I mean these are deep cuts. I asked him, why won't he tell us the truth about the deep state using alien DNA to experiment on us in MK Ultra style experiments using the flu vaccinations? I'm just waiting for him to say something batshit on TV, honestly.
Oh my God.
I mean, honestly, I would just love that. That would give me so much validation. It is my last remaining way to relax. It keeps me sane, tweeting crazy conspiracy theories at the president. But he did say deep state, so now I'm worried he actually follows me.
That's oh my God. He's MK Ultra. What? So you guys tell me that again.
Okay, so I mean, I'm going to level with you. We all know that there are frozen alien corpses under the ground from the Roswell crash, and the president is keeping them secret from the American people. I don't really believe this. This is absolutely a bit that I just have had ongoing for a long time. That is a deep cut. I don't believe a lot of crazy conspiracy theories, except for the whole, Hillary Clinton's a lizard person, but that's just because I too am an extra dimensional lizard that would desperately like to take over the world.
Okay.
Okay. I think I joked to you about this on Facebook, and that is a can of worms.
No, it's funny. It's great, actually. Yeah. It's just I'm not prepared for it, I guess.
It takes, yeah. It's you can find me on Twitter at refreshments410 or on Facebook, Silverbacks Improv Theater. We do a lot of shows. I do a horror comedy ongoing improv format where we improvise Are You Afraid of the Dark style stories. We do a lot of bits about eating the rich. So we're all just trying to stay sane through comedy in this nightmarish hellscape that we live in.
Well, on that cheery note,
I said nightmarish hellscape in a very upbeat tone of voice, I think.
Well, that always makes things better when you say an upbeat tone.
Sugarcoat it.
Yeah. All right, Rick. Well, it was great talking to you, and I hope you have a great night, and I look forward to seeing your conspiracy theories on Twitter.
Oh, thank you. It's been great, Chris. You have a good one.
You too. Take care. That'll do it for this episode of the Podunk Pollymouth Podcast. Of course, if you want to come check out the show, first I have to thank my guest, Rick Manuel, for coming on and talking to me about various and sundry subjects. I know he had to stay up late and past his bedtime, so I apologize for that. But it was still a great conversation. I really enjoyed talking to him. He's a funny guy, and he has a lot to say. So thanks again for coming on, Rick. Of course, if you want to check out the page, you can come to podunkpolymath.com. The music is by ... Check out their music at cdbaby.com/cd/... Of course, the new and improved logos by Jeff Prebig Jr. on Twitter at Pit Atheist. Facebook, the Podunk Polymath, as well as Twitter and YouTube and Google+. Of course, you can email the show at podunkpolymath@gmail.com. If you want to become part of the Patreon posse, patreon.com/thepodunkpolymath. Call-in phone number is 615-378-POPO, 7676. Of course, you can join the Podunk Polymath Podcast Posse Facebook group at facebook.com/group/the_Podunk_Polymath_Podcast_Posse. Very original, I know. And you can check out the online store, zazzle.com/podunk_polymath. Of course, if you look on the sidebar there, you'll see that you can follow me on WordPress, currently at 58 followers. You can see my tweets and follow me on Twitter in that little box. You can donate via PayPal or subscribe on RSS, Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. There's also a Patreon button. Of course, you can like the page. There's a little box there for that as well, the Facebook page. And you'll see recent posts and recent comments. Again, I want to thank Rick for coming on, and I want to encourage y'all to check out the Atheist Alliance Helping the Homeless page, which I said, as before, I will be putting up in the links. If you are in the area, please consider giving, either with your time, clothing, or financially, physically, or you can buy stuff off the wish list. If you're not in the area, then maybe you can do the other stuff that doesn't involve the clothing or whatever, but any help you can provide, and you can spread the word. Of course, if you're in your own local area, I would advise and encourage you to see if there's a similar program in your area to help your local population, because that's what it's all about, trying to help people if possible. All right, y'all. Well, thanks again for listening, and until next time, y'all take it easy now, okay?